Hey, everybody. It's great to be back. It's been a little while since I've been podcasting, so I am excited to bring back a little discussion around food and challenges that folks have with food, what camp to sit in, how they approach a dietary recommendation, social, cultural pressures, changes, environmental changes, weight loss, health, disease prevention, proactivity, all these things that factor into our food choices and what we feel in our hearts is right versus what we're told we should or shouldn't do. So let's have a blast opening this discussion up and looking at it introspectively, taking a really fresh look at some of the dogma, the belief sets that are really unfounded, yet perpetuate a pattern of behavior in society that leads to further chronic illness, such as the top 5: heart disease, cancer, stroke, dementia, Alzheimer's, and diabetic. Folks, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy this episode. And number one, I hope you learn something from this that allows you to see yourself and the world differently. Peace and love.
Thanks for listening. If you like the candid discussion and are seeking the truth behind the mainstream narrative, then please subscribe and share. Not only am I grateful, but those who seek the truth and wish to empower themselves and their families' health, freedoms, and future will also be grateful.
Hey, folks, welcome to another episode. Again, it's been a little while since I've recorded. There's been a lot going on in my life. There's been a lot of COVIDities. There's been a lot of COVIDiots. There's been a lot of pandemic stuff going on. So I hope you have a sense of humor. That was a little pun, and we're all a little bit tired of this as well. So let's talk about the fun topic of nutrition. Why is this fun? It isn't so much fun. But what I find fascinating is the challenge that people have with it, and where a dogma comes in. And what's a dogma? A dogma is a belief set that doesn't necessarily have founded information as much as it's a belief about something, and it may or may not be true. And dogmas apply. And that is, yes, it's a light definition for it, but I think it's in the general sense that I want to do this. I don't want to look at that definition specifically, even though we could. But look at food references as to what you should be eating as dogmatic. Look at how you should be living as dogmatic. In other words, how do you want to live? What is it you want to accomplish? What is it your designed and your desire is for your life? What's your purpose? See, that's the authentic piece that I want you to tap into and get into touch with. So when someone comes to me and they're struggling with a hormonal problem, as many of our women do, and our men they're unaware of it in many cases. So let's focus specifically on women in this scenario, even though it can apply to men as well. Absolutely does. But they're just not so good at looking at this and listening. And I don't mean as a blanket statement, because generalization and stereotypes do not work. But there is a pattern with women of the household making healthcare decisions, and there has been for years as a rule of thumb. And again, there are circumstances where that's not the case. The woman is out of touch. The man is the one who's very intact with it. I know those scenarios as well. But let's be very open to the possibility that roughly 70 to 80% of healthcare decisions are made by the woman of the household. That's what studies have shown us over the years. At least that's how my practice and my fellow chiropractors have looked at this scenario. So humans have evolved an interesting mix of anatomical traits over the years. And without taking into consideration, there's an argument about vegetarianism, veganism, and the rightness, okay? And I don't mean the right or left side. I mean the correctness of it in terms of society, cultural belief sets, belief systems, we could say. But I like the phrase belief set. And the belief set is It's a mindset, but it's actually your belief set. You place your mindset through your beliefs, and therefore you come up with your own version of what is real and accurate. Now, if we're talking about the argument, and I'm just going to pose a few questions in here to lead the conversation into this topic of does meat and does eating meat cause cancer, and where did this come from? Because in my experience, I've experimented in both realms of high protein and no protein. And I've gone carb friendly to no carb to low carb. And I've applied an anti-inflammatory diet. I've applied an autoimmune diet. I've applied strict paleo. I've gone completely keto for 6.5 months. I have straight and measuring my keto, by the way, my ketosis state over that period. It was very, very detailed. It was very precise. It was very well regimented. And I was doing that for my own specific reasons because I experienced cancer. And not only was it a shock to me, it was a shock to my way of life. It was a shock to my belief set at the time. It was not a part of my narrative in the story you write about your hero's journey. It was about some other form of death and or sickness and or crisis, but it was not cancer that I knew of. I could not resonate with that piece. So those unanswered questions, those myths about what cancer really is, where does it come from, what causes it, and who's responsible for it, and was I a victim or was I a co-creator? These are just a little few of the questions that I had because of my healthcare background, because of the way I live, because of the way I already addressed a really clean diet, a really healthy diet. Not perfect, but really healthy. And it's very non-typical. My diet was very non-typical of the American diet. And that's why it forced me to ask better questions. It forced me to break the pattern of what I thought created health, what I thought were the formulas for health, because I was living it. I was taking care of my spine and my nerve system on a regular basis and had for 20 plus, for almost 40 some years. Well, it was 40 some years. It was 46 years, but not fully knowledgeably doing it. Okay, it was more around crisis for the first 15 to 17 years, and then it started to become more of a wellness approach and preventive proactive. Even though I was doing proactive things, I wasn't really clean and I wasn't super balanced at the time. It was based on other dogmatic beliefs and myths about where nutrition came from, especially in the fitness industry. So that's another conversation for another time. But the share here is that people come in with this preconceived notion that, and we're really hard on ourselves. We're hard on ourselves because someone we love or appreciate or trust has a perspective on something, and therefore we empower them by allowing that to be true because it's true for them, then it becomes true for us. And just look for a time when that happens. It might be that you respect your spouse's knowledge in a certain area, and therefore when they have an opinion on that, all of a sudden that's fact. You take it for fact, and therefore it is. And even though it may be factual, it may also not be true factually. It may be it's their reality and their truth, and therefore is now being passed on to your truth. And this is a slippery slope because there's going to be an episode coming up about truth and what that really means, because I hear a lot and see a lot of talk and pander and banter on this truth piece, like my truth, hear my truth, listen to my truth. I have a truth for me. It doesn't mean it's your truth. Let's talk about that right up front. This is not my truth is this, therefore it should be yours. I'm really about asking you to ask better questions for yourself, and I'm going to share my experience along the way to help you ask better questions for yourself, or ask some of the similar questions and you search for your own answers. Or maybe you'll find that some of the experience that I've had is valuable so you can shorten your learning curve and feel free enough, feel confident and supported enough to take your own path and then do what's right for you on your own terms, and you get to call the shots. That's my real wish for you. I don't like hearing myself talk. In fact, it's really tough for me to edit these. And that's why I try to be really clean with them the first time so I don't have to edit them, like having ums and ahs in there. But the truth is that you have a way of seeing things. And my gift for you is that we open up the capacity for you to see more clearly what's right for you. And if it's seeking the truth, that you have a clearer path for it. If it's seeking or expressing your truth, that you do it and you see it in a way that doesn't hurt other people and that you feel like it's true to you. It's congruent, it's balanced, it's aligned. All right. So this conversation about does meat cause cancer really rubbed me the wrong way, because there's times when I felt really judged at times, and it was a gift in disguise. And the gift was someone else had this viewpoint about what meat was, and they started to impress it upon me, or someone around me, or by a notion, by a comment, by a question. Are you really supposed to be eating that? Man, you sure eat a lot of red meat. Is there a time when you don't eat protein? Is there a time when I find it fascinating. And maybe I just attracted that because there were questions. There was, and there's a guide and a teacher in me. I'm a projector. My ability is to see, internalize, ask questions, experiment, and then share as a guide. That's my role in human design. Look up human design, and you can get a free assessment there as well. Check it out. That's all I'm going to give you. Just basically check that out and try to understand more of who you are. I'm always trying to understand what my role is on this planet and how I can better serve my role before I go. That's it. It's beyond me. I'm a small piece of this. Everything in this life is not about me feeling good or happy or comfortable and me getting my way. It's about what does the world need and what's my role in the world and what can I do to help support the expression, the health, the experience of the people in my world and the people in my reach, for one, and those people who are willing to look at it from outside my reach, but in a perspective that, hey, they resonate with it. That's it. So the cancer-causing part of meat really forced me to look at this, because I also did an experiment in my life. And I can't recall exactly how long ago this was. I know I was journaling it at the time. I have several boxes of journals over the years that have been stored away. So I could not find it. But I became a vegetarian for about 8 months. And I was looking at doing it for a year, but it did not work. I don't even think I lasted it was just shy of 8 months. It was like 7 months, 7 and a week and a half or something like that. And what I learned was, first of all, that my body was injured more and that I would heal slower, and it didn't take much to injure my body. I thought that was kind of fascinating. It was a distinct awareness, and it happened about three weeks in. I started noticing it, and I wasn't really paying attention to it until I looked back and saw there's this pattern of why am I so sore all the time when I work out and exercise, and my body was slower to recover, and there was just less, I would say less power, I don't know if it was overall energy. I think it was like less power, less robustness in it. That's the best way I can describe it. And in that lesson, over time, I learned that my blood type I was challenging this as a blood type as well at the time, because I had done some of Peter D'Adamo's work years before that, and we looked at the blood type diet as part of an educational process, but didn't really give it a lot of creed. Like, I found certain things that made really good sense and other things that really just didn't match. And so I honored that there was, some truth in it and some factual ground in it, but it didn't mean it was all accurate. And so I just played with it at different times, but I was aware and I accepted the possibility that, hey, this is really cool information, and I want to use it to apply it and help others. And that's what I was really after. So the goal was to learn from vegetarianism and understand, was I healthier? Because I wanted to do the right thing. I was learning that all these nutrients, and I was getting information at a conference and seminars that was sharing the value of vegetables, high vegetable diet, and that, meat can cause cancer, and meat causes sickness, and meat's linked to chronic illness and disease, cardiovascular disease, and that a higher fat diet, dietary fat, is bad for the body, and that it actually is linked to greater disease, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. I was getting the same propaganda that these studies supported plant-based diets were superior. And until I really knew how to understand and look at research and who did the research and whose agenda was being served, and look at a deeper dive, because again, I was a clinician, I was providing care, I'm trying to do the best for my patients, and we had a very busy practice, but I didn't have time to research everything. So it was in this position that I was following with what some of our mentors and or colleagues that were teaching and instructing and naturopathic and in these various viewpoints, they were supplying this information from their research, and therefore then it was now being passed on, and it was just to be taken for face value that it was true. And little did I know that these variations occurred. And so I had to ask my own questions. And I started later, but at the time, obviously I wanted to, when I dove into something, I dove in and I experimented with it. There was another time when I did a workout program, and I actually in the tail end of this, and I was doing a high-protein diet where I was focused on building 20 pounds, actually it was 17 pounds of muscle mass, and I was going to do that in a 12-week period, and that was Body for Life, Transformation, and I think it was Bill Phillips back in the day. And so I went through that program, and I was really pretty successful at it until I wasn't. What does that mean? In about 7 weeks, I built about 16 to 17 pounds of muscle mass, and I believe the goal was actually 20, so I didn't hit my goal. So I wanted to go from like 155 to 175 is what I was looking at that time. And ultimately what I did was built 3/4 of that way up, almost a little more than that, and could not get past that because I could not eat enough. I was literally eating all the time, and I was calorically just cranking it up, but I was building muscle mass, and I was pretty lean, about 11% body fat at that time. And I was really uncomfortable, and I just felt like, wow, this is really interesting. I can't eat enough to keep my body weight. Therefore, what if I was not supposed to be bigger than that? Now, some of you might go, well, dude, you just keep plugging and you hold, if the goal is this, then just do that. But I was a little different in terms of respecting the body and respecting my unique body size, 5'10 and a half, close to 5'11". Of course, I'm going to say 5'11" whenever possible. And I was always pretty lean with a waist size of 31 to 32. And at 51 years old, my waist size is 32. And so it has changed maybe an inch since high school and college. And that said, I still have about a 9% body fat right now. I only share that with you because my lifestyle is really consistent. And I have always worked on my health since a young age when I started in high school lifting weights and really just working on my body from a health standpoint. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be fit. I wanted to have a very athletic and free life in terms of what I could do and what I was able to do and how I wanted to just live vibrantly. It was always in my radar. And That's why in chiropractic I chose drug-free lifestyle and a drug-free healthcare profession rather than looking at it from the other side, which isn't bad. It's not who I am. It's not how I saw the world. So when we get into this cancer-causing part, the preface to this story is important because my experience was also challenged like yours may be, that we are told and we are taught certain things about food and nutrition that in some cases are really not accurate, and in many cases very, very agendized and politically driven. And when I say politically, I don't always mean the government. I mean with businesses politically driven as well, and who gets the voice to share what it is that we should be eating. And a lot of this changed in history. So one of the first questions I want to address is, are humans omnivores? What are we supposed to be eating meat? And this argument from the other side, when I say the other side is the non-meat eaters, is that our teeth are such that we're herbivores. We don't have fangs. We don't have really long, sharp teeth like a fox, like a wolf, like even some primates, and like a tiger. So we don't have teeth like that. Therefore, we're not meat eaters, and that's the argument. Well, that does not take into consideration all the facts. That's only part of the information. When we look back historically, thousands of years, we look at Neanderthal jaw structure, number one. The jaw structure was giant compared to what it is now. And it is our teeth structure, our bite, everything is different. Well, back in the day, in that era, they did not know how to use fire. They had to chew and masticate raw meat. And that took a lot of force and a lot of effort, and therefore they were equipped at the time with that structurally, genetically, to be able to masticate, chew, break down meat that was raw and uncooked. That was part of their body. That was part of their life. Okay, that's ancestral, that's primal, that's understanding the heritage of human beings. Moving forward, humans learned how to use fire. They learned how to use their hands. Obviously, our bodies are designed with ambidexterity. We can manually manipulate fine motor skills, and that has developed over evolution. So there's some scientists back in 1995, Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler. They proposed an explanation in a paper published in the journal Current Anthropology. Their expensive tissue hypothesis posits that in order for an animal to develop a large brain, it has to prioritize fuel for the brain and use less energy in other metabolically expensive tissues. In the human's case, the theory goes as our ancestors became better at procuring more nutrient-dense foods and developed methods of preparation using tools in cooking, our digestive tract shifted and our brains evolved. We evolved to more real estate in the small intestine, which is significant, by the way, which preferentially absorbs nutrient-dense, highly digestible foods. Relative to other primates, the fiber-fermenting portion of our digestive tract, the colon, is comparatively smaller. So varied food sources provide a more nutrient-rich diet, which is what we need. Our bodies naturally want variety, and we get bored of eating the same thing all the time. This was great when we had to go out and search for food because it kept us motivated to seek new flavors and textures. This is why you can eat buffets and why they're so popular, because we can try a little bit of everything. It's tempting to think that the way our bodies are shaped, no claws, flat teeth, is all of the evidence we need, and that we are biologically designed to eat plants. Unfortunately, what this isn't taking into account is our ability to make tools and fire. Humans can make arrows for hunting and sharpen stones and shells for scraping, pounding, and slicing meat. We don't need claws or massive canine teeth in order to kill and digest meat. In fact, while some of other primates do eat some meat, humans consume much more. The nutrients derived from these animal products provided to our brain is what separates humans from other primates. On the flip side, when they did consume things like grains or legumes, traditional cultures used technology to soak, sprout, and ferment them, to both reduce the plant toxins and improve digestibility. So the point is that if one points to our lack of large canines as proof, that we are not designed to eat meat. Is it reasonable to just ignore the technology we also needed to eat most plants? That's an argument that's not discussed. They want to pick and choose why we're not meat eaters for their own agenda and their own belief set that perpetuates that. Granted, when I wasn't asking questions as well, and I accepted that base layer, I did accept that. Hey, we're designed with our teeth. That makes a whole lot of sense. That's why our teeth are like they are, and they're not like an animal's teeth with sharp canines that is a meat eater, basically. And I did not have the capacity to go deeper into that at that point. But all the changes that occurred in my life forced me to look back into this differently. And that's because I chose to, by the way. I was curious. I was looking to get to the bottom of what didn't add up for me in my life, and how did I get cancer when I lived my life healthfully against much of what's recommended in today's day and age. And I was doing really uncharacteristic forms of health care in terms of chiropractic on a regular basis, organic food because of my wife's experience and her health, and just everything we pursued, my energy, my athletic lifestyle, my willingness to exercise both cardiovascularly, as a runner, as a weightlifter, as a basketball player, all these things that I incorporated into what we refer to as a healthy lifestyle. And what it really forced was, wait, this does not add up linearly. If I do A plus B plus C plus D, then that equals E, and that's health. And what I really discovered was it is not linear, and I was missing something. Something was off track, or wasn't it? And now I had the capacity to go in and say, look, this is handed to you. This is handed to you on a plate, on a silver platter. This is your experience. So when I got diagnosed with cancer on January 8th of 2019, it was for a checkup for a thyroid lump. And I found the lump when I was shaving one day, and that's it. And so then it was, let's get this checked out. And what happened was it was a 5% cancer rate of a thyroid lump. 95% of the lump on a thyroid is nodules, and 95% of the time those nodules are benign. And if you're 50, then there's a 50% likelihood that those nodules, that you have nodules on your thyroid. If you're 40, there's a 40% chance you have nodules. If you're 70, there's a 70% chance you have nodules. It's a direct relationship to your age. Direct correlation. So as I discovered this, I was in shock, like, no way. First of all, second opinion, both my wife, Dr. Heather, and I, no, wait, we're getting a second opinion. And two, wait, what just happened? What? This doesn't make any sense. Locked up my hard drive. And from there, it's interesting. I knew for whatever reason, it was going to change my life. It was going to change my life. And I didn't know how. I didn't understand the how. I just knew it was. And I also knew one other thing. It was a gift. But I didn't know how to embrace it. Don't even think I'm telling you that I did embrace it. I just knew that, but I wasn't ready to really embrace it, if that makes any sense. So I just knew it was a gift. I just didn't know what or how I was supposed to use it or what kind of gift it was. I just knew it was a gift. It's the best I can tell you. So I shared these same belief sets about eating meat, about how our bodies are designed, about someone else doing the math, and that made sense to me. Therefore, I didn't have to think any further about it, so I just accepted it as reality. And then I looked at where else do I do that in my life? And I started to get more authentic in my own perception of things and ask my own questions for my own reasons, and not needing to be right and not trying to do everyone else's work because I didn't trust anybody. It's more like just follow my natural intuitive sense to ask questions and get answers along the way, and know that I would figure it out as I went. But my life was for the now. It was, look, this is what you have right now. It is what it is. Live it as good as you can, as well as you can. and get every last drip out of it. So moving on to the anatomy of humans, we have distinct features that make us able to eat both plants and animals. As mentioned, our small intestines are longer than the average primates, and our colons are smaller. This means we're not able to break down certain plant fibers or other types of bulky plant materials as our gorilla relatives do so well. Also, with a larger small intestine, we're adapted to eating nutrient-dense foods like meat and cooked starches because we are able to better absorb the nutrient from these foods. We also have different enzymes than other primates that allow us to digest dense starches and dairy. Finally, when it comes to our teeth, we have canines for meat and flat molars for grinding plants. So we're equipped for chewing both plant and animal foods. We need nutrients that are found in both plants and animals. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition evaluated the diets of 229 hunter-gatherers and found that most ate somewhere from 45 to 65% of their calories from animal foods and the rest from plants. This flies in the face of what we're told from the vegetarian promotion and the vegan promotion, of course, culturally, that there's also other things we'll get into in terms of what farming and eating animal products does to the environment. A lot of myths to break through there as well. There's actually true advantages to our ecosystem by consuming animal products and healthfully, responsibly farming practices that actually support both sides of that. So I found that interesting that 45 to 65% of the calories from animal foods and from the rest from plants. This practically 50-50 mix allows for the most variety of nutrient intake, since humans do need quite a few nutrients to thrive. And the key word is to thrive, not just survive. Hey friends, this is the end of part 1. Look for part 2, Does Eating Meat Cause Cancer? As this had gotten to be more in-depth and longer than many people want to listen to in one episode. So enjoy part 2 as it's posted. And again, as always, thank you so much for listening.
Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, franklyspeakingdrwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share, so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice and their health freedom. Speaking up means you matter, so get on it. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements or views expressed are not medical advice and are not meant to replace the advice of your medical doctor. This podcast, including Dr. Wade Anderson and his guests, disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects you may experience from the specific use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse and accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about the guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for such services or products. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products and services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical condition, consult your licensed physician.